Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is the Bare Threads and I've done some more sewing. I'm so into sewing at the moment. I don't know what's going on, but I've really got my sojo working. So what I've made for my son is this really cute fleece jumper, I guess. Kept saying to him that I was going to make him a fleece and he had no idea what that meant. So I really do just love making clothes for him. They always come out looking so cute even when they're not sewn perfectly, but they're just so much easier to work with, like the smaller amount of fabric and the smaller pattern pieces. They're just easier to cut and sew. The whole thing just seems a lot quicker, and then the fabrics are quite fun and bright and vibrant, so that's fun. So this is the Cloth Collective mock neck fleece. Goodness me. I actually got it from Etsy, and I bought a few patterns from Etsy, some from companies or pattern makers that I recognise the name of and some that I don't. So Cloth Collective was not one that I recognised, but they're pretty cheap on this. It was like £3 or £3.49 or something. I would say that's probably undervaluing the work of a pattern drafter, so it's perhaps slightly questionable to buy from there. But as someone who doesn't have a whole lot of money and is finding like buying patterns for like 10, 15, 20 pounds to be a bit of a difficult investment, especially when you've got the cost of the fabric to add on as well, I've kind of been going for it. So I don't know, let me know what you think in the comments about these, like the cheaper patterns and like the Etsy patterns, and like I don't know anything about Cloth Collective, so if you've heard of them and know anything about them, just let me know. But this was the first pattern of theirs that I used, and it is this kids fleece pattern. So the pattern is like a fleece jumper. It has this neck here, obviously, but it's not like it has a neck. It has like a collar is what I'm trying to say, and then it has 5 buttons that open up. Oh, one's just broken. Oh, these buttons have been just a nightmare. More on that. I'll have to fix that one. Anyway, so it's got 5 buttons there, and then it's on buttons, and then you can also fasten it up. So the pattern gives you kind of 2 options. One is that you just make it all in the same fabric, so the whole thing would potentially be orange. You do need a piece of woven fabric for the button placket, and then also it tells you to interface that as well, and then the rest of it is fleece. So this is anti-pill polar fleece that I got from Pound Fabrics. I decided to go for a mixture of colours. Orange is his favourite colour, or it was until the other day when he's just announced to me that it's now yellow. I'm not sure that he was telling the truth then, though. I think he still likes orange, hopefully, because I've made him this now. But then I decided to add like a jazzier patterned fleece to the bottom half, because I just can't stop myself. I'm like a magpie, and I just wanted something that was like fun and different. So the bottom of the front and back pieces were with this jazzy fabric, the rest is in orange. These 2 bits at the front are actually pockets, although they're kind of interesting pockets because they're completely open at the side, so it's quite, I guess it'd be quite useful to put in your hands in there to keep them warm, but I'm not sure how useful they would be as pockets, because I feel like stuff would just fall out quite a lot. So that's why the front you don't see quite as much of the patterned fabric, because those pockets cover it up, but you still cut it in the same shape, and it's essentially a rectangle, although with a slight curve here to go under the sleeves. I do kind of wonder why you wouldn't just cut it off right under the sleeve, so it would just be a rectangle, but whatever. The pattern also said to do the inside of the collar in the same fabric as the outside, but I thought that was a bit boring, so I decided to add more of this jazzy fabric to give it like a pop of colour. If you roll the collar down, you would like see that, or just if you have it undone, you'd sort of see that. And then, yeah, I used just a green fabric for the button placket, and then these orange plastic colour snap button snaps, which I do not recommend because they were a bit of a nightmare. The polar fleece was super easy to sew, really straightforward and easy. Really like it. Have a bunch left over now, which is somewhere on here behind me, and so I want to make him some matching trousers. So I just need to find a pattern that will accommodate the lack of stretch. I mean, there is a bit of stretch in it, but not that much. The pattern itself though was okay, but there were some bits that didn't make a ton of sense to me. So you also need fold over elastic, which I'd never used before, and they tell you to put it around the inside of the collar piece without any instructions on how to do that, which I thought was a bit surprising because I kind of feel like probably a lot of people have not ever used it before. But also it doesn't tell you how much to stretch the elastic, so I don't know how, I don't know what the point of it was. I think that was the problem. I don't know what the point of it was. It hasn't really added anything to the collar, but I think that might be because I didn't stretch the elastic enough, but I didn't know how much I was supposed to stretch it. I also found it really hard to sew it on neatly in a straight line, so my collar was looking a lot neater before I had to add the elastic on, and that's made it look less neat. Part of the problem is that I used 16mm fold over elastic because that's what I could get in the orange colour that I wanted, and the pattern did call for 19mm elastic, which I suspected was a conversion from an imperial measurement, and I'm not sure that 19mm is a standard size, but I wish I'd gone for 20mm because that would have been easier to work with. This really small elastic just made it fiddlier to sew, and it didn't capture in like as much of like the seam allowances that the pattern probably anticipated you would be able to. So that was on me, but I just didn't think that the pattern gave you any instructions on how to use the fold over elastic around the neckband and not the neckband, around the collar piece, and I just didn't really understand the point of it at all. You're also supposed to use the fold over elastic on the cuffs and on the waist, and then at those stages it does tell you to measure the size of the waist and the size of the cuffs, and then times that by 0.08 to get the size of the piece of elastic you would need. Now if you times it by 0.08 you get a really tiny amount, so as soon as I saw that 0.08 I thought that cannot be right. It would have resulted in a piece of elastic for the waist that was 6cm, which would have been about like a quarter or less. Then well, it would have been 0.08 I guess of the waist size. Like that must be a typo and it must be 0.8, but that might cause people some problems if they don't realise that and they cut their elastic and then they run out of elastic because they cut it wrong. So it actually should be 80% of the size of the waist and the cuffs. So I did realise this and I did cut them to the right size, but I found it so difficult and impossible to sew it on. I did get most of the way around the waist sewing it on, but it was not catching all of the seams. I was really struggling where there's the pockets, because you basically have 4 layers of the fleece, which is quite thick fabric. The side seams were quite hard as well. It looked really scruffy. It was popping out everywhere. I was having to I had to unpick this, like some of it, and re-sew it a couple of times, and it still wasn't working. So I just gave up on it, and I literally just turned over the hem and just did a little turn over hem. And again, I kind of get what the point would be if you have the elastic there, because it would kind of it would like scrunch in the cuffs and the waist, but you'd still be able to get in and out of them because it would stretch. But I don't think it needed that, and I just couldn't figure it out, and I got a bit annoyed. So I just turned over the hems of the sleeves and of the waistband. So I made the size extra small, and I thought that would be the right length on him, but I thought the sleeves looked a bit short, so I added an extra inch when I was cutting out the pieces. I added an extra inch to each of the sleeves, but because I've turned them both over, the waist and the sleeves, I'd say I've lost most of that inch that I added in, and I've also lost a bit on the length of the garment. So actually I could have done with a bit more length in the sleeves and in the body, because I lost them when I decided to hem it like that. That's just the way that I decided to do it, obviously. But yeah, I could not figure out the fold over elastic. The real nightmare for me, and like, no, they've just popped off again. Oh, these snaps. So I thought I had it cracked, and now 2 of them have just come undone. It's so frustrating. So the button placket is like, you've got this woven fabric, which is just a thin piece of cotton fabric, but it's folded over. You've got the interfacing in between, but then you've also got it over the top of the fleece. So I don't quite know why we needed to interface when we're putting it over the top of the fleece anyway. And at the top, it's actually got 2 pieces of fleece where that collar piece is, because there's a front and back on the collar. So it's really quite thick. And I got these snaps, and I guess they're just not the right kind of snaps, but I didn't realise, and they've proved to be so hard. So I bought the snaps, which I can't, it's a bit hard to show because the package is now open. These like colour snaps from Prim. Didn't realise I needed a pair of pliers, so then I had to go in to town and buy some pliers. Bought the wrong pliers, so then I had to order just the bit I was missing was just that, so I had to order a separate pack with those on. Finally I got all the bits I needed to use these colour snaps about £25 later, and I could not get them to go through the fabric because it was so thick. So I persevered. I used scissors to like cut a hole through all the layers of fabric, and I finally got them all on the other night. There's like a pokey out bit and an innie bit that they connect together, and one of them was a lot easier to attach than the other. So the top 2 do not fasten up because I couldn't get the like opposite sides, both of them in, so I had to use 2 of the same because they were the only ones that would actually go through that much fabric, because the top part is where the collar is and it's double thickness. The other 3 I managed to do. 2 of them I've just broken, so I mean the amount of effort this was and it's still not right, but that's just the snaps, and I really think that, I mean, I don't understand why we had to interface this placket bit because the fleece was in between it anyway, but I think the snaps I chose were just the wrong ones. But my son really wanted the orange ones, because at that point orange was his favourite colour, so that's quite annoying. So I'm going to have to now look at that again and see if I can sort that out. It's a bit hard because at one point I was like, well, I'll just not bother with the snaps and it'll just be open all the time, except I'd already cut holes in all of it to try and get them through, so I had to persevere with it. Anyway, I think it's a cute jacket, apart from the buttons driving me nuts. I am really pleased with how it turned out. I do think that I'll use the pattern again. I'll just make some adjustments, so I'll probably just not bother with the fold over elastic at all, and I'll use different poppers, and I probably won't bother with the interfacing, and I might rethink my sizes or add a couple of extra inches to the sleeves. But pretty soon he'll be ready for the next size up anyway, so I'll have to do the next size up. But this is the little fleece for my son. Let me know what you think in the comments, and do give us a like and a subscribe.